Welcome back to In Response EDH. As always, I'm your host Albert, and I'm glad you can join us for another great Commander gameplay video. On today's episode, Jose is returning with his mono blue control deck led by the Phyrexian Praetor, Jin Gitaxias. He wants to control the table with mass bounce effects and counterspells, all while drawing himself a ton of cards and taking extra turns in order to set up for his combo finish. Next we have Genesis making his second appearance, and he's brought back his hard-hitting Prossh Skyraider of Care deck. This deck plays token doublers like Parallel Lives to make extra Kobold and treasure tokens, and wants to kill the table in one shot with cards like Berserk and Hatred. Across the table, we have Mike returning, and of course, he's playing his Atraxa Super Friends deck. This deck has found success in both of our seasons and is a tough matchup. He's looking to gain a big advantage through his Planeswalker's abilities, and then return them to the battlefield along with the rest of his graveyard through an Eerie Ultimatum or Primeval's Glorious Rebirth. I'm up next and playing Gishath, Sun's Avatar. This deck has also been doing well on the channel and has racked up a few wins for me. This of course is just your run-of-the-mill Dino tribal deck that just wants to overrun the table with some big dinos, but does employ a couple non-dinosaur creatures like Odric to give my whole team a bunch of keyword abilities and Aurelia for some extra combat steps. Before we get started, we would like to remind you, if you enjoy our content and would like to support the channel, consider becoming a patron. When you do, you're not only contributing to the channel's growth, but you're also being entered in our monthly giveaways, as well as receiving patron-only perks. All proceeds of our Patreon are reinvested back into the channel to bring you the best content possible. We would also like to thank our sponsor, Dragon Shield. Hit the link in the description of this video to check out the best product out there to protect your cardboard. You can also support the channel by using our affiliate link when purchasing product and singles at TCG Player. With that said, and the introductions out of the way, let's start the game. I start the game playing a tapped Sacred Foundry and passing. Jose then plays an island and passes. Genesis draws and plays a tapped Blood Crypt and passes. Mike then plays a command tower and passes back to me. I draw for turn and play an untapped Bountiful Promenade. I then tap both lands to cast a Swiftfoot Boots. On my end step, Jose cycles away a Lonely Sandbar and draws a card. He then draws for turn and just plays another island. Genesis plays a Graven Cairns as his land for turn. He then taps both lands to cast a Fellwar Stone. On his end step, Mike casts a Vampiric Tutor and goes searching for a card.
Oh, I'm not supposed to reveal it, am I? I'm gonna play it anyways.
He then starts his turn, drawing that card and playing a Snow Island. He then casts the Mana Crypt he searched for and follows that up by tapping out for an Academy Rector. I start my turn by playing a command tower, then tapping all three lands to cast a Kadama's Reach. Searching up a forest to the field tapped and a mountain to my hand. Jose draws and plays another island. He then taps out to cast a Worn Power Stone. Genesis then starts his turn and plays a Taiga. He then taps one to cast a Mana Bolt. He then proceeds to tap all his mana to cast his commander, Prossh, Skyraider of Care, creating 6 Kobold tokens as he casts it. After that, he passes. Mike then rolls for the Mana Crypt and doesn't take any damage.
Black. 2. Cast Damnation. I'm not gonna attack anybody because I'm not starting shit with either one of y'all. It's just not a big deal for
Alright, can you get rid of that? Can you bounce it? Can you
Hold on a second, I'm not done.
I know. Not with the cards in my hand.
He then follows that up by casting Farewell, choosing only to exile all artifacts. I start my rebuilding phase by casting a Sword of the Animist, and then casting Otopic Huntmaster. I then play a Selesnya Sanctuary, and as it enters, I choose to bounce a forest back to my hand. Jose then draws, and just like a control deck, he plays a land and says go. Genesis starts his turn, missing a land drop, and just pays 2 to cast Lightning Greaves. With nothing else, he passes. Mike draws and plays a Bark Channel Pathway. He then taps out, losing 1 life, to cast his commander, Atraxa, Praetor's Voice, but Jose disallows it before it even gets a chance to hit the battlefield. I then untap and draw for turn. I choose to tap out, paying the reduced cost, to cast ᴍᴜᴜᴜᴜ. I tap my Huntmaster to give it haste, and go to combat, and choose to swing at Mike for 3 damage. I then play another bounce land, and return my command tower back to my hand. Jose then untaps and draws.
If I didn't ask for this, I don't know what I did.
Jose plays another island, and then taps 2 to cast an Arcane Signet. Genesis draws a card, and again misses another land drop. He then taps 2 to cast a Grim Monolith, and passes. Mike plays an Urza's Saga as his land drop, and doesn't cast anything with the Omniscience. He then ends his turn. I untap, and replay my command tower. I then equip my dinosaur with the Sword of the Animist. After that, I pay 3 to cast Cultivate, searching up another force into play, and a force to my hand. Then I'll move the combat to swing at you for another 4.
4?
And then I'll get another land.
That's not cool to hit me for 4.
Go ahead. Jose then draws for turn, and plays another basic island.
Consecrated Sphinx. Pass the
You're
turn.
not gonna counter that?
If I could. If I could.
Pass the turn.
Alright, I'm gonna
Aren't
see
you
if this
gonna-
works.
Kill it.
I mean, I'm just trying to draw.
Blessed.
Why this?
Oh, nice.
I don't have anything.
Alright, now you guys gotta exile his graveyard.
Do your thing. I'm no hate. I'm just saying this game's about to get out of control, and that is the result.
That sounded hateful. I'm sorry.
That sounded hateful.
After Genesis just passes the turn, Mike's Urza's Saga gets another lore counter, and then plays a Henge Pathway as his land for turn. And at this point, Jose then remembers to draw 2 cards from his Consecrated Sphinx.
Cast Attraction?
I can't do nothing.
Alright, I'm done.
I draw for turn, and Jose remembers to draw 2 as well. I'm not talking to you right now.
What are you so mean?
Gishath?
Man.
I have an Atraxa. Everybody's mad at me because I played Omniscience once.
I'm mad at you because you play a Atraxa. Jose coming at you. When I attack, I search up another land with the Sword of the Animist. Jose then chooses to block the ʟᴏᴜᴜ and takes 8 commander damage from Gishath. We'll get a counter. 1, 2,
Oh.
That's
3,
1.
4,
Yeah.
5,
It's not cast, so
6,
it's fine.
7, 8. After that, I end my turn. Jose then draws and reveals a Temporal Mastery, which he then casts for its miracle cost to take another turn. He drops a Myriad Landscape on the field tapped, and then pays 2 to cast a Search for Yscanta. He then pays 2 more mana to cast Anticipate. He finds a card from the top 3 and puts it into his hand. Jose then goes to his extra turn and plays another island. He then casts Temporal Mastery and delves away his graveyard to take another turn. Jose then follows that up by activating the Myriad Landscape to search up 2 more islands to the field. He then starts his second extra turn, this time remembering his Search for Yscanta trigger, and chooses to put the top card of his library in the graveyard. He then draws for turn and casts a Mind Stone, followed by a Fairy Formation, and with nothing else, he passes to Genesis. Genesis draws for turn and then casts a Dockside Extortionist, creating him 5 treasures. After that, he decides to recast his commander, making some more kobolds as he does. He then moves the Greaves onto Prossh, but decides not to attack and just passes. Mike draws for turn, and before he puts another lore counter, activates his Urza's Saga to make a construct. He then goes searching for her soul ring with its last ability, and after that, he casts Smothering Tithe.
Oh wait, I was supposed to draw 2 cards from your thing.
Yeah, all in the turn.
I draw for turn and give Mike a treasure.
I'm gonna make all the treasures, yo. How many treasures?
All the treasures?
All of the treasures.
I then activate my Zacama to destroy Mike's Smothering Tithe.
Alright. Then
You could have done that during your upkeep. None of this would have happened.
deal 3 here. I'm gonna deal 3 again.
Okay. I drew enough cards.
I then play a Forest as my land for turn, and after that, I go to combat and swing Ghalta at Genesis, the ʟᴏᴜ and Gishath at Mike, and Zacama and Atali at Jose. Atali's trigger then exiles the top of everyone's library, and I find a Call to Mind and Beast Within. I then cast the Beast Within to destroy Atraxa, and Mike makes a 3/3 Beast. Then follow that up by casting Call to Mind, returning Kodama's Reach to my hand. Before blockers are declared, Jose pongifies Zacama, and I get a 3/3 Ape. Before it dies, I decide to activate it one more time to get rid of Mike's construct. We then go to blockers, and Mike blocks Gishath, and everyone else takes the damage. I then resolve Gishath's ability and look 6 cards deep, finding a Death Gorge Scavenger and a Verdant Sun's Avatar. I choose to have the Avatar trigger go off first, gaining 5 life and 2 more from the Scavenger. The Scavenger will then trigger, and I choose to exile the Omniscience in Mike's graveyard. Jose then starts his turn and casts a Sleight of Hand, looking at the top 2 cards of his library and puts one in his hand and the other on the bottom of his deck. He then follows that up with a Back to Basics. After that, he casts a Time Warp to take another turn after this one. He then moves to combat and swings his Fairy Formation at me for 5. He then moves to his extra turn, and this time remembers his Azcanta trigger, putting a Frantic Search into his graveyard. He then casts Narset Parter of Veils, and activates it, looking at the top 4 cards of his library. He reveals an Altar of the Brood, which he then casts.
We gotta work together to handle that.
We can't work together if you tap.
I back to basics so he wouldn't be able to get his
How's
commander.
it supposed to work together? I'll take him out.
You're gonna let me untap one land, dog. We can't help you.
Genesis draws for turn and decides to just play a tapped Overgrown Tomb.
Oh, end tap?
It doesn't enter tap.
Wow.
Oh no, it doesn't enter
But
tap.
I put it.
Oh, no,
I'm
no,
an idiot.
No,
do
take
it back.
it
Take it back.
back.
It's your life.
Put it back in your hand.
Nope.
Okay.
He said no.
I put it
Unacceptable.
myself,
Okay, untap.
Mike then draws, and he also plays an Overgrown Tomb, but chooses to shock it in. He then cracks some treasure and the tomb to cast Oath of Teferi, choosing to exile his command tower. He then moves to his end step, and it returns to the battlefield untapped. Play another basic plains as my land for turn, followed by a Kinjali Sunwing. I then paid 3 to cast Kodama's Reach again to get some more basics on the field.
I will put the mountain into play, the forest back in my hand.
I then remember to gain 2 life from the Dino entering, and realize that I gained 1 too many life last turn. I then give the Sunwing haste and go to combat, swinging everything at Jose.
Where?
That way. If he has something, he has
Yeah,
something.
you can
Attack
leave me
trigger.
alone. I ain't doing
Yeah,
anything.
attack triggers.
Reveal top card.
Door of Destinies.
Oh, that's
I'll
a
go
good
ahead
one.
and play Door of Destinies.
Attack of thought.
Okay.
The Scavenger will also trigger, and I decide to exile the Time Warp in Jose's graveyard. Before it blocks, Jose casts Polymorphous Jest, turning all my big dinos into measly little frogs.
And I take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Good 19.
Wait, this didn't attack.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4,
counted
5,
it
6,
right.
7.
Okay.
He's on top of it, yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Genesis. Thank you.
No, every time there's been times where I think you slipped up and no, you accounted for some detail that people.
Everyone
don't.
else missed the
People
whole
don't.
time. And he's like, no, you did it wrong. They're like, no, you missed
I'm
this.
like,
Probably the
I got
most
it.
aware of the board state
Yeah.
dude I've played with. Yeah.
Definitely.
That's not true.
There's times I slip up, alright?
Apparently, you don't watch the
Game-
videos. Thank you, Genesis.
After that blowout, I activate Jace's -2 ability to reveal the top 3 cards and choose Mike to make the piles, revealing Garruk's Uprising, Mana Crypt, and Polyraptor, and I decide to take the Mana Crypt and the Polyraptor. Jose then starts his turn, playing a Strip Mine. He then taps 3 for Heuristic Study. When it enters, the Altar of the Brood triggers, and we all mill a card. He then activates Narset again, looking at the top 4 of his library. He then reveals a Jace Unraveler of Mysteries.
Jace.
Just trying to. Oh, is this a leveler player?
Leveler.
Oh, you're such a bitch.
plus Jace.
When he goes to draw a card with Jace, he can't, and wins the game. Well, congratulations to Jose on getting another win this season. This deck is a tricky one to deal with. It has the ability to draw into a ton of counters or bounce spells to deal with his opponent's boards, and then locks them out of the game with Back to Basics, which is brutal on its own. This is only worsened if he has his commander on the field, which forces everyone to discard their hands on their end steps. The Back to Basics really shut down any hope for Genesis and Mike to be able to get back into the game, and the Polymorphous Jest really saved him since I had way more than enough to deal lethal damage to him. But if you're drawing as many cards as he was, you're definitely going to find some answers. Genesis really struggled to get anything going this game. He missed quite a few land drops early on, but it really didn't help that Mike slowed us all down with that farewell on turn 3. Mike looked like he was on his way to finishing the game in typical Mike fashion with a turn 3 Omniscience. Unfortunately for him, he was left with just lands in his hand and couldn't benefit from it the way he normally does. Besides that big play, he really wasn't able to make a big impact on the game this time. I, on the other hand, had another strong showing with Gishath. I was able to find some big hits with Gishath's attack trigger, but it would have been really great if I could have exiled one of Jose's extra turn spells off the top of his deck with the Tali's attack trigger. But oh well, I'm happy with how the deck played and hope to get my revenge by stomping all over my opponents the next time I play it. If you enjoyed this game, consider stopping by our Twitch streams for Salty Tier Tuesdays every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and Fridays at 7 Pacific Standard Time for live Commander action. Make sure to like the video and leave a comment, and if you aren't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Before we go, we'd like to give a big thank you to our amazing patrons. We are glad to have your support and thankful for each and every one of you. We here at In Response would like to thank you for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure you follow us on our social medias. We also stream every Friday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you for watching. Have an awesome day.